This episode is brought to you by Start Summit 2026, Europe's leading early-stage startup conference. Bringing together more than 7,000 founders, investors, and innovators in St. Gallen, Switzerland, the summit explores what comes after the AI hype, from deep tech breakthroughs to building scalable companies in Europe. With top speakers, live pitches, and hands-on sessions from seed to IPO, it's the place where Europe's next generation of startups take shape. Learn more and get your tickets at startglobal.org/start-summit. And with the code SWISSPreneur10, you get a nice little discount. See you there and enjoy the show.
I brought it to my rigger as kind of the technician. And he told me, hey, you can't jump that. That's like the year is fake and everything. A lot of people get scammed, so watch out. And so then you go on Facebook and you just scroll groups. It's like searching the needle in a haystack.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Sylvan.
Leon, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You are the co-founder of Avento, a marketplace for extreme sports. Before we talk about what you actually do, we want to learn more about your background, but also your university ties to Start Global.
Absolutely. So I maybe have a bit of an uncommon path to how I got where I am. I used to be quite bad in school when I was a kid, and with that I dropped out of high school. But then I started an apprenticeship in a bank in Basel, Bank Dreyfus, private bank, very corporate, but it was a very good time. I learned a lot, and then I kind of realized, school's not even that bad. It kind of worked out. Then after I graduated, I worked a bit full-time, but I realized that this very corporate style, as we like to call it, but I think back then it wasn't really conscious what it was, but just wasn't happy. And then I decided to go study, went to University of St. Gallen initially I wanted to study business, then switched to economics, which I've actually just had my last exam of my bachelor's yesterday.
That must feel great.
It feels amazing. And there I kind of slid into Start Global. It was more of an accident initially because I didn't really know what it was, but when I was there it was great. And yeah, with that it all turned out to be how it is today.
It was Start Global sort of your first touch with entrepreneurship, or did you have thoughts about starting your own company eventually before that?
I had the plan, or I knew that I would want to do something myself. But I think this conscious touch point to entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurship scene as we know it, that was with Start Global. Before that, it was just kind of this intrinsic knowledge of I want to do something myself and not just work hours for the sake of working hours.
Where did that come from? Did you have any role models who inspired you to become eventually an entrepreneur yourself?
That's a good question. My father, my dad, he founded a company with two others in the software area. They do softwares for schools, but not kind of in how the today's startup world knows a startup or what it understands from a startup. But it was this kind of understanding of doing something yourself, working very hard, or having kind of a purpose in what you do. My mother is also self-employed, and I think also my grandfather was a self-employed photographer and politician. Yeah. So I think it was just this intrinsic thought of kind of wanting to do your own thing, a bit of this need for freedom. And I think probably came out of that, but I can't consciously say what it was. It always was there.
But there's entrepreneurship in your veins, so to speak.
To some extent, yes, I would say so, yeah.
And what originally drew you to join Start Global? Because at University of St. Gallen, you have a lot of different clubs you can choose from. Why specifically Start Global?
That's a funny question. So when I first came to St. Gallen, I moved to St. Gallen and started studying with a friend of mine from Basel. He then eventually stopped and continued studies in Basel after a year. But it was actually his idea to apply for Start Global. what I do have to say is Star Global back then did quite a bad job in explaining what they do in little words. And now they got a lot better. So I didn't really understand what it was. I knew it was something with entrepreneurship and something with different projects and summit and whatever. Mm-hmm. So we just applied. He was like, hey, yeah, let's apply. It's super cool. And I was like, yeah, why not? And actually only when I went to the interview, I actually realized what they do. And then I found it super cool. I joined. He actually missed this interview. He never joined. But I joined. So the initial kind of driver was quite accidental, but I'm very happy it turned out that way.
Yeah, sometimes all we need is a little push from a friend or someone we meet, and then, oh, good things open.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what was your role at Start? What were you responsible for?
So in the first year when I joined, that was during my first year at HSG, I joined tech and innovation team, so kind of IT and tech. Not because I have a tech background or I'm super good at tech, but because I always had this interest and fascination of learning a broad skill set, which I'm also very happy that I have this. Turned out to be very important. So then I joined tech. I did a bit of tech administration and also my first steps in coding with doing 2 lines of HTML. But I learned a lot. And then after a year, I decided to apply for a board position. But I wanted to do something different as the board position. Mm-hmm. So something that is more kind of directly connected to entrepreneurship and startups. So then I applied for the board and I actually did a board position that was founded that year. I mean, what I did existed before that. It was called, or is still called, Sphere, one of the 4 projects of Start Global. And one part of this, and the very important part, is Start does not only have Start Global as a chapter, as a hub. There's the Start Network, which is kind of a consolidation of independent associations at different universities all around the globe, all under the Start name. So there's Start Munich, Start London, Start Maastricht, a lot of those chapters. And because Start Global was the first chapter, also the largest chapter, and the foundation kind of that holds all of the branding rights, etc., is in St. Gallen. The coordination of those chapters happens from St. Gallen. So I was responsible for that, together with Benjamin, that was doing that for quite some time. Because with a big network like that and so many different chapters, as we call them, it is super powerful, but it's very hard to coordinate because in the end, they're all independent. They're their own associations, but we all operate under one name and with one goal. So that was great. I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of founders. I got to travel a lot. And on the other side, we called it, I think it's called different now, development. What Start realized back then is that we are quite known as the Start Summit because it's the largest European early stage startup conference. But except that, during the year, we're quite not connected to the entrepreneurship scene, especially also the Swiss startup scene. So we try to do there is to kind of build up more of this continuous connection to the ecosystem, because that was in the end what we tried to have an impact on, especially those kind of 0 to 1, the first steps in founding.
It's so important, right?
It's extremely important.
Because the Start Summit is an amazing event that probably most people here listening to this podcast know and maybe have even attended themselves. But at the same time, I remember when I was studying in St. Gallen, that was, I'm old, like 12, 13 years ago, something like that. There was also Start sort of getting bigger and bigger, but there was nothing happening during the semester on campus. So I was then part of the Young Entrepreneurs Club, that's how we called it back then, which later merged with Start. And we exactly filled that gap to have more presence during the semester, to have entrepreneurs coming on campus, share their story, and hopefully inspire more people to start their entrepreneurship career.
It's extremely important, because what Start does very well indirectly and has done for a long time is what it teaches the people that are in the team as an active part of the team in Start, because they have so much responsibility in such a young age, which a lot of them now went on to become founders, joined early stage startups. That one's great, but except that HSG is unfortunately still, it's also a good thing, but it's still, in German we say Kaderschmiede, it's more geared towards people going to work in large corporates, making a corporate career, which is absolutely valid, but there is a lot of people who are very interested and fascinated by this thing of doing something yourself, but they just don't know where to start. And how do you do that? And not all of them have the capacity or the time to join Start as a team member for a year. And I think especially for those people, that's the impact we try to have, because we have had so many people coming to us at Summit and being super fascinated and so amazing, and I really want to get to know more of that. And it's also how a lot of people join the team and start. But I have so many people that come to me, it's like, hey Leon, I have those ideas, but I have no clue where to start, and what is even a good idea, and how do you differentiate? And I think that it's a hard journey, but that is in the end what we try to do to support this early part of the scene.
That's amazing, because in the end, you have to do stuff to be an entrepreneur, right? So that's not happening in the classroom, but you actually have to do stuff. And I feel Start is providing an amazing breeding ground to actually do so and learn what entrepreneurship is and if it's a good fit for you also.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it more later, but I can confidently say I would probably not have managed to be where I am without Start. And I'm very happy that everything turned out how it was. So I'm very grateful for the time I had in Start.
That's the best testimonial they could ask for. We also had many Start alumni, even founders on the podcast already. I'm thinking about Herman Arnold or Andreas Göldi, many, many more, Adrian Locher, you name them.
Yeah.
So many of them also inspire. So I wonder, how much do you actually learn from the inspirational part of being surrounded by successful founders who actually walked the talk and built, maybe even exited companies? And to what extent is it more learning by doing? Because basically by building the Start Summit and executing that, you take a lot of responsibility and you sort of learn what it means to build and to execute stuff. Which one do you think is more important, or is it just the mix of both that actually supports you to get there?
It's for sure the mix, but for me, I would definitely say the doing part and taking the responsibility side is way more important. Also, one thing that fell into the area that we were trying to build up with Fear was a closer to connection to the alumni. So a lot of those people, everybody knows them, but most people in the team, they don't meet them a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they are of course very busy people, and they do take the time, which is great. Especially Andreas Göldi has taken quite a lot of time for me, and we've had a lot of sparring sessions, which was great. But that was when I was on the board, because of course not everybody is constantly surrounded by hundreds of people that have exited huge companies and probably work more than anybody could imagine.
Yeah.
So I think this presence of them and them always being there when you need them and when there's big decisions, that gives you a bit of this feeling that it is possible, it is reachable, and they're also just humans, maybe smart humans, but just humans. Yeah. But I think the most important part with Start, and absolutely the most important part, is this availability or possibility to have this much responsibility so young. I mean, there's 19 years old, 20-year-olds that are responsible for a 7-figure yearly budget and huge partners, very important companies, speakers that are like the stars from our world, right? And it's a 19-20-year-old that has, most of them never actually worked a proper job in their lives, and they're responsible for that, and it works. And it's hard, but it works. And I think with that is something that you just can't get anywhere else, because when you join a company, it's going to take some time, many years, until you have this much responsibility. And I think, of course, it's the responsibility you learn from. Yeah. When you know there's consequences if you fuck something up.
Exactly. You really jump into the cold water, and you have to deliver and figure it out. Why do you think that works so well at Start? Because I see other student-run organizations that really struggle with that. People changing every year. There's no sort of consistency in terms of leadership. There's a lack of knowledge transfer. What did you guys do differently that you really make that work despite the turnover and being students with a lack of experience, which is very normal, but you still have to sort of make it work, right?
I mean, you touch exactly upon the main pain points that we have. It's not like you can just get rid of this. It is a constant pain, especially with such a changing team. There is always a part of the team that is staying on. Some of them now taking the board roles, the leadership roles, one person being the president of the next year. Yep. But the vast majority is always new people. They don't have any experience. And most of them just like first have to learn, hey, what is a startup? Like, what's around? What does a VC even do? To kind of get this broad understanding to then actually speak to the people and plan what you want to do. So we do have the problems. I think what makes it work with Start is, on one hand, we try to minimize those problems. We try to get a structure in. We try to transfer the knowledge as well as possible. Now, since 2 or 3 years, we also have our own foundation, the Start Foundation, with which we try to kind of streamline those more holistic processes without like taking away the responsibility from the student team. Mm-hmm. But I think the main reason it works is that you have certain pillars they're always there and help. So you always have Andreas Gödi that is there and supports, who's especially the president. And in what you do, you have the other people from, back then it was called Advisory Board Committee. Now it's the Board of Trustees of the foundation. They kind of give this holistic understanding. And there is a lot of involved Start alumni. For example, Dominik Scherle,
I still remember him.
He used to be in Start, and he was in the team that they first brought the summit from the university to the Olma halls. Yep. And he now has exhibition construction company, and he also does that for Start. And because he does it every year, there's always fuck-ups because it's so much. But there is this certain consistency that you need, and they can tell you, hey, that didn't work last year and that worked.
Great.
And then in the end, it's reaching high enough for it to be a learning and be powerful and be great and always be astonishing what we built there, but somehow always managing it. And it's every year the same. Some years better, some years worse. During my year in the board, the first day of Start Summit, I slept for 20 minutes, and then I had a lot of partner meetings, and I was there, and I barely could stand. But evening before, I had to be I was allowed to be at the dinner. It was like this GP LP dinner that we organized, and technically Tristan, the MD for Summit that year, should have gone, but he was sick, unfortunately. So I had to go there to represent kind of the Start side. So it was a very nice dinner, super good. We had quite a lot of wine. And then at 11, 12, when he was done, I still went to the Olma halls because I knew that there was a lot to do. Mm-hmm. And we were not done with construction. We were by far not done. So we stayed there and built everything up. Like I think we were finished at like 7 a.m.-ish, 6 a.m. Then we went home to sleep 20 minutes and we came back. It's a very surreal week for Summit, even for the people who are in different teams, not specifically doing Summit, but everybody has to support then. But that also makes it so great. Like the feeling of accomplishment when you somehow manage to build it is amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like a boot camp, and it also really bonds you as a team, I imagine, to a certain degree. And I wonder, with the skill sets, there are so many things to learn along that process that you just described, but maybe you can pinpoint 2 or 3 key skills that you really developed and took away that are now helpful in building your own company.
I think I would probably differentiate it like in indirect and direct skills. Mm-hmm. Direct skills depends a lot on which team you worked in. For example, in the content team, the ones that manage the speakers and find the speakers, they learn a lot about the startup scene. The team that manages the pitching competition, they really see a lot of pitch decks and they learn how to validate an idea. Cool. So that there's a lot of different skills. Marketing, they learn huge hard skills and like this whole production that we all do ourselves. So I think that depends a lot. For me, it was probably one of the most direct, important skills was this learning to validate ideas, seeing a lot of different startups and pitch decks and getting a feeling for what works, what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But I think the way more important part of it is the indirect skills that you learn everybody in a different way. And I think the first one is, how do I structure them? I would say first one is structure, actually. Mm-hmm. I worked 3.5 years in private banking, but there I didn't really have to have a structure because everything was structured already, and I'm absolutely not a structured person. So the first time I actually learned how to use a calendar, even like these basic things, was in Start. Kind of planning what I do, having a structure, knowing which software tools to use for what is quite important, actually. The second one I would say is confidence. Mm-hmm. Just not being shy of just reaching out to people and asking. Maybe they say no, maybe they don't answer, maybe they say yes, but you can't lose anything. And I think especially when you found the confidence to just reach out to people and say, hey, can you give me an input? No. Is super important and has helped us a lot as well. And lastly, I think it's the responsibility in a sense of either leading a team, but in the first time when you start a company, you're not starting off with leading a huge team,
Of course.
but just leading a team or leading a project. This project thinking and prioritizing, because you never have enough time to do everything you want to do. What is important now and what isn't.
Spot on. I remember like when we were running this sort of club as well at the university, the Young Entrepreneurs Club, I had no idea how to do sales. And, it's the classic thing. You develop an idea during your studies and then you think, this is the most amazing idea the world has ever seen. Then you go out there, you talk to customers or potential customers, and they all slap you in the face. We don't need this. What is this? This is total garbage. Like, what are we supposed to do with that? And this sort of, by doing sales for the club, or in your case, just asking for introductions or for support, that really teaches you that you have to put in the work. But the worst thing that can happen is they say no, and you are exactly where you started. The best thing is they help you or open doors, and then these connections lead to even more connections. So just to overcome this fear of maybe rejection or maybe just trying something, it's super powerful, because if you learn that early on, sort of sky is the limit. I think it's a universal skill set that is so valuable.
Absolutely. I think it's a little bit like talking to people you're attracted to. I think the first time somebody sees a woman he doesn't know and would like to introduce himself and maybe ask if she would like to go on a coffee or something, it feels so huge. Like this little, hi, nice to meet you. This feels so huge because you could be rejected and it could hurt, right?
Yeah.
But I think after like a while, for most people, done it once or twice, you realize rejection is not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be punched in the face.
Hopefully.
Probably if you get punched in the face, you probably deserve it.
Exactly, I agree. So we understand a bit more about where Start was coming from, what you guys do and what you actually learned from it. Now the missing puzzle piece for me is, how do you then translate those learnings, the inspiration, the motivation, the network that you've built to, okay, I now want to take this one step further and I start my own company. What was sort of happening? Was that sort of the logical, natural next step for you, or how did you then say, okay, now I start my own company?
I mean, not directly. I knew that I would want to found eventually, but you're also not just gonna run out there and say, hey, I found 135th AI agent that does the exact same thing that everybody else does. Like, as much as I hate this word, because it's not just an idea, but you need an idea that is somehow valid, then you validate it, you try it out. Worst case is you learn something, but you're just not gonna like sit down and say, I decide now, and like we leave this room and then we have a unicorn idea. So for me, I was always trying to like see what are the next steps, how do I get there. I was thinking of doing a couple of internships at startups in different stages to get to know the scene better and learn more. But I always, like since then, especially since I was in Start, had this thinking of just seeing everything as a problem and a potential solution, even if it's not a potential startup case, but just having this approach to it is very important. And then eventually when kind of I saw this problem that we're solving now and I saw the solution to it, I kind of catch me a bit. Initially, like took a bit of time, but I kind of took some time. I qualitatively validated it a bit. And with time and the more people I talked to, I realized, hey, I think this is actually like this proper example that everybody talks of a problem in search of a solution, which again, I can't hear it anymore because we talk about it so much, but it is very true. So I think it happened kind of through that. The important puzzle pieces were, I think, this just like state of mind of trying to just be open to any potential ideas and problems you see. And secondly, the aforementioned skill of being able to judge a bit better than maybe somebody that has never seen a startup, what can be an idea and what can't.
Yeah, and they're being exposed to startups, to different ideas and different people certainly helps to build that judgment.
Absolutely.
So you did start Avento in mid-2025.
Yes.
For someone who never heard about you, because it's still sort of the early days for you guys, what exactly are you doing? What are you building?
So very quick, it's quite simple. So we are a verticalized kind of online marketplace for extreme sports equipment. many people will know like Chrono 24 for watches or StockX for shoes. So it's kind of like this approach to it, just very different in our niche. What we realized is that a lot of extreme sports have certain things in common. So we're starting with skydiving. Also, as of now, we're only doing the skydiving market. But the idea would be, if it works, to expand it to similar markets that have similar characteristics, which is you have a very expensive gear, which makes the secondhand market very active. You have very specific gear, which makes it super hard to find something close to you. So it's not going to be as easy to just say, hey, Silvan, you don't use your rig anymore, can I just use yours? Because probably it's not going to fit me for some reason or the other. And the markets are very scattered internationally. So how it works now, which was quite confusing for me in the beginning, it just goes over Facebook groups. Like I know it mainly from skydiving, because I started skydiving, which is also how kind of I got to it. And then when I wanted to buy my first rig, I went to ask my instructors, hey, I need a rig. Where do I buy it? Because I can't afford $10,000 rig new. And they were like, yeah, check on Facebook. But a lot of people get scammed, so watch out and see. So then you go on Facebook and you just scroll groups. It's like searching the needle in a haystack. Then you find something. Hopefully, like you have common friends on Facebook that you can kind of ask, hey, do you know that person that knows that person? Is he trustworthy? Yeah, it was hard also for me. I got lucky in a sense that I found something, I bought it, went to pick it up in Romania, brought it to my rigger as kind of the technician, and he told me, hey, you can't jump that. That's like the year is fake and everything. So I reached out to the seller, but he didn't know that either. I mean, he couldn't have known. It was like a very specific thing to realize that, because he bought it used himself. He actually flew to Switzerland from Romania to bring me another rig for free, which was amazing. But
lucky.
He was a great guy, but most people wouldn't do that.
Of course.
And what we also realized is that, especially in the recent years, there have been groups of fraudsters that picked up on the fact that there is expensive gear traded without any security.
I imagine.
Which the people really realize. So they, like, when you check Reddit, when you check Facebook and all the forums, like, people are like, hey, how the fuck can that not work? You can't use eBay because, firstly, the pricing is just not working for that types of gear, and especially the specificity. You can't find anything. Like on Ricardo, which is our kind of Swiss eBay, if you search for skydiving gear, you find paragliding gear. So that really doesn't work out. And so with that kind of approach to, hey, problem solution I immediately thought of that. But then I have to say, in the beginning, I thought, hey, no way. Like, marketplace, network effects, we all know the statistics, we know how hard it is, and everybody tries it and never works out. So first I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. But then I still spoke to a lot of people, and with time I realized, hey, maybe that actually is this case of problem in search of a solution, because people actively wanted that solved. And with whoever we talk now, even now that we are founding it, everybody that we talk to, as soon as they kind of understand what we do, people really, really like what we do. And that is great to see. But in the beginning, it's very hard. And I mean, especially marketplaces and network products are great to found. They're super fun. Once you have this kind of critical mass, it's great, but it is super hard in the beginning. And it is the business concept that has the lowest success probability.
Yeah,
I do think that is a bit of a skewed statistic, because there is a lot of people that just think it's building a website and it's done, and that's the smallest part of it. So when we started that and we started building it, and we talked to the community, we talked to skydivers, hey, can you give us feedback? Can you check that out? Go on the waiting list, etc. A lot of people, like 5-6 people, reached out to us. Hey, I thought of building the same thing that you did for skydiving, because it is so obvious, kind of. And we always went to sit down with them and wanted to know, okay, why didn't you do it? Or if you did it, why didn't it work out? And it was always the same thing. They just sat down, built a website, usually just out of the box kind of marketplace software, no code. Then they set it live, and they think, okay, now it's going to work by itself. And
nothing happened.
That's not how it works. So I'm very glad that we did it. But I think that was one of the biggest learnings I had from the start, because especially in our area, because we were working with so many people and network and alumni, we also tried we had like this idea of like this app to like be in contact, blah blah blah, network effects. I kind of spent some time with thinking about it. So I was luckily aware enough that you can't just go in and make a website. So yeah, I think then I kind of started to think more and more and more, and eventually I was like, okay, this has potential. I truly believe in it, which is when I reached out to Tim, my now co-founder, if he would be interested to do it with me, and we took it from there.
I love it, because you actually started solving your own problem that you faced, and then you saw, oh, there are other people who face the same challenges.
Absolutely.
Like me. So you sort of validated it that way. My question is, the biggest challenge in your specific niche is really this trust, and probably the adverse selection, that you not only get bad products on the market that no one can sell anywhere else. How do you solve that problem? How do you sort of guarantee the quality, but also make sure that you actually don't get scammed when someone sells you their gear with either broken gear or outdated gear, that people are really getting the quality that they pay for?
So the problem is actually very twofold, because from the buyer perspective, it's very obvious. You need used gear. First, you need to find something, which is extremely hard. And secondly, you need to know that you're not being scammed. But from the seller side with that, the problem is there is a lot of people who have used gear, especially also because the churn is quite high. With progression, you always take different gear. And there's even a word for it, closet queens. They just don't manage to sell it, or it's way too much of a hassle, because also sellers get scammed. And they can't really find somebody that buys it for a good price, more like a fair price. So it's on both sides. And really what we are doing is we try to take away as much friction as we possibly can. Our two kind of USPs. The first one is being this verticalization that I mentioned. So our current marketplace solution that is just for skydiving is fully focused on that. So you have all brands, all models, all very specific kind of metrics that you only have in that sport. Like what, like parachute sizes can your rig, the backpack, can it hold? Like, because if the backpack's too big, it can't hold like smaller parachutes because they just float around, and vice versa. So we spent a lot of time on this filtering system and filtering algorithm. And the other one is a classic kind of escrow payment service, just like other successful marketplaces have done it. So it took ages to build that, but it's like this transaction flow. Because I mean, there's also a very specific transaction flow for the type of gear that you buy and sell. But it comes down to, we hold the money in an escrow account with our payment. We don't hold it ourselves with the payment provider. And when the buyer receives the gear, he has 2 weeks time to bring it to his rigger, to his technician, which at every drops on every place where you skydive, there is a rigger. So that is not a problem. People know riggers, and they check it out. And if it is not according to the description, so if anything was stated wrong, then they can click a button, dispute, goes to us, we speak to both parties. And when we confirm that, he sends back the gear, and as soon as the seller has the gear, he gets the money again.
Nice. Yeah, that's so important, because otherwise you miss the trust part.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, on Facebook, it's really just sending money on PayPal to wherever.
In good faith, basically. You have nothing to enforce if you get scammed.
I mean, there is certain mechanisms that you can like try to minimize the risk. Yeah. I'm also, we're going to be at a skydiving conference in Sevilla, European Skydiving Symposium. Very excited for that end of month. And I'm actually going to do a stage session about just in general, like what can you do to try to minimize the risk to get scammed. But there is not really a one-fits-all solution to it, unfortunately.
Fair point. Not yet. And now if you think back about these early days where you're still at, basically, what is something that surprised you that was maybe harder than you thought in the early days, and another thing that was easier than you originally envisioned to actually start and build your own company?
I think what was harder than I thought is just the workload.
It never stops.
Absolutely not a negative thing. I love doing what we do, and I really like being in the office until 2 a.m. because it's fun. Especially when you have a co-founder and you're in this together. But initially you always think, hey, it's not that much work. You do a bit of sales and a bit of that, but it accumulates and there's always more. Yeah. So I think I really underestimated that. I didn't expect that to be as much. I'm not sure if I would have started if I knew it.
Sometimes that's actually a good thing, though. Because some people, they say, oh, I was so naive. I didn't think it would be so difficult, so hard. And then they say, if I actually knew everything I know now, I would have probably never started a company. So it can also be a good thing.
That's the funny thing, because I've heard that so many times when I was in Start, and I was always like, it's classic, like founders buzzwords.
Right.
It's actually true, and I think you never exit that situation. Like I probably have no clue what's coming from me in the next years, but it's fine. It's fun, and what was easier than I thought is actually acquiring new skills. Because we're two founders, we're both not like actual techies, and we do have to develop that solution ourselves. And that's the most beautiful part of founding, especially early stage founding, that you just have all hats on. Like you're a sales dude, you're an accountant, you're a tech developer, you're marketing, whatever. Like you just do everything, and that's amazing because you just do so many different things. And for me, like I was always fascinated of this kind of tech part and code, and like in Start I was first kind of like working with it, but I always thought, that's a different world. Like I can't understand it. I need a PhD to even get into that. And Tim, my co-founder, he has more of a technical background than me. He's also not a techie, but he has more of a technical background. He has done some internships as a developer. He's done a lot of also kind of technical courses at university, also in his master now. So initially it was more like, okay, you do the development on the kind of software side, and I do more of the sales community relations side, product development. But then we realized, okay, if it's just two of us and we're not at the scale that you can perfectly separate and everybody works at the same time.
It's fluid, yeah.
So in the beginning, I like built the whole front end website, not the actual marketplace, but like just the landing page with Webflow, which was like a huge learning. It was like 2 weeks. I was like, oh my God, how does it work? Eventually it worked. It was super fun. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, shit, now our bottleneck is to get this actual software website, like the web application for the marketplace done. And that was just so much work. And Tim alone, like he just couldn't be as fast. So I was like, okay, I guess I have to kind of learn it. So I did like this online Code Academy course in like a week. I just smashed it all in. And then I sat down and I was like, okay, how does like an IDE, like a Visual Studio Code, how does it even work? And then I started, and then Tim helped me, of course, a bit. And Ati, good friend, who was actually in the MD Tech when I was in the board of Start, he's also founding, and he helped me a bit, like, hey, yeah, like this is the terminal, and that's how it works. And so kind of it started, and then once we started off, I realized it's not even that hard. I should have started that way easier. Like it's a whole new world that I got here. And
that's cool.
So I think actually like this decision of, okay, you have this hard thing in front of you that you have to learn or get into, and making this decision to just start it, and then usually in the end it's like wasn't even that hard. Not that it's not a lot of work, but it's very possible.
Right.
So I think that was the easier.
I
talked a lot about that.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And you sort of do whatever it takes. And I feel also your timing is pretty good because you learn all these things, but now technology is also changing rapidly fast with the whole vibe coding movement. So I feel the timing to actually start something, it has probably never been better than right now.
Absolutely. And I mean, in the code development and software development, we use a lot of AI. I do believe that kind of this thought of you can fully vibe code an application and you never have to look at code yourself, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, it might work for a prototype on like there's a lot of like vibe coding tools that are very big and very successful that just work with a chat interface and you tell them what it should be. But as soon as it's complex, that alone doesn't work. You need to kind of get the understanding. Yeah. But I mean, for that, there is a lot of AI tools for actual developers. I mean, we use Codex. A lot of people use Claude Code in their IDE, in their terminal, etc. And that is so powerful because as soon as you have a conceptual understanding and you need to understand what's going on, but then what it can help you with building it is amazing. Like we couldn't have done it at least not in that time, but not sure if even without those new technologies.
Exactly.
It's extremely fascinating.
Great time to be alive.
Absolutely.
And I also wonder if, maybe there's a student listening to this episode here. What would you recommend, given everything you've gone through, everything you know now, what would you recommend to a student who says, I want to start something, I know that, but I don't know where to start? What would you recommend to them to really get the ball rolling and eventually become an entrepreneur themselves?
I think there's just a lot of different levels to the learnings, right? I think one of the learnings I had in hindsight, what I kind of, when I reflected, okay, what helped me or what what didn't. For this kind of 0 to 1 part, like just this starting off, because in the end you need to find something that you can start off.
Yeah.
There you're gonna learn the most you ever could, and you're gonna adapt. But I think for that, as funny as it sounds, like there's a lot of people who like say like, oh, I want to found something. I have like this list of ideas.
Yeah.
I actually think this list of ideas is great. Not that you then go and you select something from that list, but this list of ideas that you just write down every time you see problem, potential solution.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of brings you in this way of approaching things that you have this entrepreneurial thinking of problem solution.
Yeah.
I did that actually, and I think it's not the list, but that it kind of helped me, of course combined with the time I had in Start, helped me think of things as potential ventures and solutions. I think that was the most important part of kind of this finding an idea part. And then in the end, it's just like, honestly, try to expose yourself as much as you can to that, with things like Start, with things like listening to your podcast, which I think is great, because you just, the more you surround yourself with something, just like the more you surround yourself with certain people, and the more it brings you in that vibe. And then honestly, just do it and try it if you can. I don't like people who say you should just found, because it is a gamble.
No.
And depending on what you found, it's very money intensive, and
Of course.
the possibility of it not working out is
Yeah.
absolutely there. So you shouldn't found if you can't afford the worst outcome.
Yeah.
But if you can afford it, especially when you're a student and it's not so money intensive, you can't learn more than if you try it out.
I agree. That's usually the best time, because your lifestyle is also pretty low. You don't have anyone like family, for example, depending on you. So there's rarely a better time to start your first company than after finishing your studies.
I agree. And one thing that I think is very important is not doing it alone.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that is just from how much fun it is to do it together, how less hard the hard times are if you have somebody to share the hard times with.
It's usually one is always a bit more positive than the other one in that specific moment. And then you
Absolutely.
lift each other up again.
So honestly, without him, I would have stopped by now. And I've talked a lot about that to my cousin. My cousin actually is doing a postdoc in entrepreneurship, so he has very much this scientific side to it.
Yeah.
And the research absolutely shows that if you have somebody to do it with, that helps enormously.
For sure. So now I'm also curious about your future. What are some milestones that you want to hit? Where are you taking this?
More on a personal or on a startup side?
It can be both, but let's start with the startup.
On the startup side, so to give a bit of context, we launched in November
2025.
2025, so a bit more than 2 months ago. Kind of soft launch. We were not like this, okay, now we go fully in the skydiving market. So far it's working out great. Of course, it takes a bit of time, but we have, like, I think now it's around 90 listings. We had 7-8 transactions, which are quite big in our case. We're working with great partners, great people from the scene, and also we get great support from people outside of that scene that are just supporting us. For example, Samuel, he's a Start alumni. He works in the offices. He founded Journeyman. They do Erasmus for tradespeople.
Nice.
So tradespeople can also, just like students, go there for half a year,
Amazing.
and work in the US or in Australia. And he was one of the ones that I just reached out to. The one thing I mentioned before, I was like, hey, can you just give us your thoughts? And he's helped us a lot just because he has the experience, and he pushed us to launch in November and not launch in January as we initially wanted to, which was in hindsight great. On the startup side, what we want to do now is like this time now we see those signs of momentum. It works out great. We get great feedback, but we really need to double down on it and capture it, because we're not established enough yet that it is self-sustaining. So I'm so glad that we're done with the exam, so we can really push this. So I think it's really scaling in the skydiving market to get this critical mass to be like this one place where people go when they want to buy and sell gear, because only then it is truly valuable to everyone.
Yep.
So I think that's just the one thing. To get that first, now our focus is still very much on getting as much sellers on there as possible, because you always have this chicken and egg problem. But especially in the beginning, the sellers is very important. Alex who founded Marco, I called him once because he's a Husky alumni. I just say, hey, do you have an idea? You have your inputs. He was great. He took some time. He gave me a couple of inputs. And one thing that he said, what I found super amazing, was you just have to think about it that way. If some random skydiver goes on that marketplace and he looks for a certain gear, what's the probability of him finding it? Which, because it is so specific, is not that high.
No.
So that is really the most important things. The transaction will increase with that. And what we want to do then, kind of in the more medium term of like next year, hopefully, is to when we have kind of consolidated in the skydiving market, to evaluate where can we like bring this next. We've had partner of ours that said, hey, we love what you do. Could you also do it for paragliding, for diving, or whatever?
Course, yeah.
And that we really want to do. But one by one, because you need those critical mass in the network density per network.
Yeah.
So I think that's the medium term, and long term, just really want to, in this extreme sports scene, be the one place where people can trade their gear, where people can sell their gear when they need to get new gear and buy new gear. I'm not the type of person, and Tim neither, that likes to be sitting there in the very beginning, not having done anything, and say, hey, in 3 years we're a unicorn. I really dislike that. So a lot, often when you talk to people, they say, hey, don't you also want to do all the other markets, everything exists? Honestly, no. I mean, you never know, but the market's more than big enough. And I'm also for me, it's not my life goal to be a unicorn founder. I want to found something that works, that is sustainable, that helps people, and that is fun to build, that I love. And we have more than a big enough challenge ahead of us.
I imagine.
So I think that's a long-term goal, to really establish this as this one place for extreme sports.
Amazing. We're going to closely follow from the sidelines.
Happily.
To wrap up the conversation today, I also want to ask you some rapid fire questions. So I give you either different options to choose from, or a short question you have to answer in 1 sentence maximum. Mm-hmm. You ready?
Absolutely.
Learn first or start first?
Start first, but learn quickly.
I love that. Nice. Talking to users or building quietly based on your own conviction?
Absolutely talking to users.
Small steps or bold moves?
Bold moves, but small enough that you don't absolutely face plant.
And one thing that you would do sooner if you started all over again?
I'd say just start projects. Maybe not even I should have started a startup when I was 16. But just following projects, maybe on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Because I think that's, in the end, just what funding is.
Do stuff, build stuff.
Absolutely.
Jumping out of a helicopter or an airplane?
If it's just for once, jumping out of a helicopter, jumping out of an airplane is more scalable because you can go up and down more often.
Nice. And what is your favorite skydiving destination?
Thailand.
Love it.
I've done my license in Thailand. I started skydiving there. I'm actually flying to Thailand today to skydive.
What a coincidence. Leon, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stein, for having me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.